It was Jenna's dream house, not mine. A two-story Victorian nestled in a quiet Pennsylvania suburb, its paint cracked like old porcelain, its windows cloudy with age. The moment we stepped inside, Jenna's eyes lit up. She saw charm and history. I saw shadows and silence, but I kept quiet. After everything we'd been through that year, she deserved a fresh start. The first night felt fine, almost peaceful. We ordered pizza, unpacked some essentials, lit a few candles. The power hadn't been fully wired yet, and the house hummed a faint electric tension. As I drifted off that night, I thought I heard faint footsteps upstairs, soft, deliberate. I brushed it off as floorboards settling. The second night, things shifted. Around 2:40 a.m., I jolted awake. Not from a sound, from a sensation. It felt like someone was watching me from the hallway. Jenna stirred beside me. I whispered, "Did you hear that?" She shook her head, half asleep. I got up and checked. The hallway was empty, but there was a strange bitter smell in the air, like burnt wood and old copper. Our dog, Ruby, wouldn't enter the guest bedroom. She'd stand at the threshold, growling low, the fur on her neck raised. Once when I tried to coax her in, she backed away, whimpering, and refused to eat for the rest of the night. Jenna thought maybe there was a draft or a noise we couldn't hear. But that room stayed cold, freezing, even during the July heat wave. On the fifth night, I woke up to whispering, soft, close. At first I thought it was Jenna talking in her sleep, but she wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs in the dark kitchen, standing barefoot, eyes fixed on the hallway leading to the basement. "There's someone in the walls," she whispered. I heard crying. Her voice trembled like she was remembering something instead of discovering it. I checked the basement, every inch of it. Nothing but old furniture, mildew, and a rusted furnace that hadn't worked in decades. But even I had to admit, it felt. Watched, a week in, things got worse. I started hearing knocking, soft taps behind the drywall. Always around 3 a.m., 3 knocks. Then silence, always 3. One night I knocked back just once. The wall replied, twice. We tried to ignore it, told ourselves we were sleep-deprived. But things moved when we weren't looking. I placed my keys on the entryway table and found them later in the freezer. Our bathroom mirror fogged up one night, though no one had used it, and drawn across it in a childlike scrawl, "Don't look at her." That same night I saw her for the first time. I was brushing my teeth, leaning over the sink. I looked up. She was behind me. Pale skin stretched tight over her face, black eyes, her mouth too wide. I turned fast, heart slamming in my chest, but there was no one there. Just the cold, damp air and the echo of my own breath. Still, we stayed. Then I decided to document everything. I placed my phone on the kitchen counter and hit record overnight. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. Mostly silence, a hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of wood. Then, at 3:12 a.m., a whisper, barely audible. I leaned in closer, turned up the volume. "He sees us now." My stomach dropped. I didn't tell Jenna. Not yet. I didn't want her to think I was losing my mind. But deep inside, something was changing. I no longer felt like this was our house. It felt like someone else had been waiting. It was the third week when Jenna started to change. She'd always been cheerful, grounded. But she began waking up in tears, unable to explain why. Her eyes were darker, like she hadn't slept in days, and she spent hours sitting in the living room, staring into the corner where the antique bookshelf stood. She wouldn't speak unless I did first. Sometimes, I'd catch her muttering under her breath, her gaze unfocused. One afternoon, I found her in the attic, curled up in a dusty blanket, surrounded by boxes we hadn't touched. She was whispering to herself. When I asked what she was doing, she looked through me and said, "She likes me now. She told me where the bones are." I froze. "Whose bones, Jenna?" She blinked, like she didn't remember speaking. She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and walked back downstairs, barefoot, her steps silent on the creaking wood. That night, the whispering in the walls grew louder. No longer isolated to 3 a.m., now it came in pulses. Whispers in the plumbing, voices through the vents. Once, I leaned my ear against the wall near the guest room and heard children giggling, layered with something else. A wet, dragging noise, nails on plaster, a guttural sob. I bought a motion-activated camera and placed it in the guest room. The next morning, I found the footage corrupted. Distorted audio, static-laced frames. But for 1 second, one single frame, a figure stood in the center of the room. Thin, pale, eyes black as oil, mouth stitched shut. I showed Jenna. She smiled. She doesn't like being seen. From that moment, I realized something deeper had latched onto her. This wasn't just some haunting. Something was bonding. Jenna started drawing symbols on the windows with her fingers, circles with jagged lines. I'd wipe them away, but the condensation would return, revealing the symbols again. One day, I came home from work and found the front door wide open. Ruby, our dog, was gone. I searched the neighborhood for hours. When I came back, Jenna was standing in the hallway, holding a leash. Her dress was torn. She smelled of dirt. She ran into the woods, she said softly, eyes glassy. She'll come back if she wants to. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with a flashlight and a baseball bat, eyes locked on the basement door. At exactly 3 a.m., the door creaked open on its own. A voice whispered up the stairs. "Down here, it's warmer." I should have run. I should have called someone, but I went down. The air was thick. The light flickered, buzzing. I descended slowly, each creaking step echoing like a scream. When I reached the bottom, I saw nothing at first. Just the old furniture, the furnace, the concrete floor. Then I noticed the wall. One patch of it was wrong. The bricks had been disturbed. Fresh mortar. I approached, heart pounding, and pressed my hand against it, warm. I grabbed a hammer and started chipping. Behind the bricks was something wrapped in burlap, damp and foul-smelling. I yanked it free and unwrapped it slowly. It was a doll. Handmade. Stuffed with straw. Its face was sewn on, crude and childlike. But its mouth had been stitched shut with real thread. The kind used on skin, and inside the fabric, something heavy. A human tooth. I dropped it. The furnace roared to life behind me. I turned, light blinding, and for a split second, I saw her again. The woman, standing in the corner, her neck twisted at an angle no living thing could survive. Her lips opened slowly, even with the stitches. And I heard Jenna upstairs, laughing. The whisper haunted me. "He sees us now." I played the recording over and over, trying to catch something I might have missed. Another voice, a clue, anything. But it was always the same, low, hushed, and chilling. Jenna didn't want to hear it. "Don't bring that into this house," she said, voice shaking. "Don't make it stronger." "What does that mean?" I asked. "Make it stronger?" She wouldn't look at me. She just stared out the window toward the woods behind the house. That night, the scratching began. It came from inside the walls. A slow, dragging scratch like fingernails on drywall. Ruby growled low and steady, her body stiff. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard whispers. Not just one voice, a dozen, maybe more. All murmuring at once. I couldn't make out words, but they were there, constant, breathing. Listening. The worst part, when I whispered back, "Who are you?" They stopped. Silence filled the wall like a vacuum. Then a single tap echoed back. Deliberate. Jenna cried that night. I held her, trying to stay strong, but I didn't sleep. I just watched the dark corners of the room and waited. The next morning, we found words etched into the wall of the guest bedroom. Not written. Etched. Like someone had clawed them out with broken nails. "Don't listen." We tried ignoring it. We tried pretending none of it was happening, but the house didn't care. Every night, it grew louder. We'd find chairs turned over, cabinets wide open, the TV turning itself on, always to static. And the static wasn't just noise. If you listened long enough, you'd start to hear voices buried in it. Crying, screaming, pleading, and something else. Laughter. Low, guttural male laughter that sounded like it came from behind you, even when you were alone. I set up cameras, hidden ones. I told Jenna it was for peace of mind. But I was desperate. I needed proof. I needed to believe it wasn't all in our heads. That's when I saw it. At 3:11 a.m., always that hour, a tall shadow figure walked through the hallway. Not walked, floated, gliding just inches above the floor. No face, no eyes, just a void shaped like a man. It paused outside the guest bedroom, tilted its head, then vanished through the door. The same door Ruby refused to go near. I showed the footage to Jenna. She went pale, dropped the laptop, and ran to the bathroom. I heard her sobbing behind the door for almost half an hour. When she came out, she said only one thing: we should have never moved here. But we couldn't afford to leave. Not yet. So we stayed. We tried to survive the nights, but something had changed. The house wasn't just haunted. It was aware. Watching us, reacting. And worse, it wasn't alone anymore. It started with a soft creaking above our heads. At first, we thought it was just the house settling. Old beams, dry air, temperature shifts. But then we noticed the creaking always happened between 3 and 3:30 a.m. And it always followed the same pattern. 3 steps, then a pause, then 3 more. Like something was pacing, watching. We hadn't been up to the attic since we moved in. It was just a crawl space with a dusty pull-down ladder in the hallway ceiling. Jenna was adamant we never go up there. One night, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps above our bed kept me frozen in place. When it stopped, I swear I heard a soft exhale, like someone bending over to breathe into my ear. I bolted upright. Jenna begged me not to, but I had to see, I had to know. I pulled down the attic ladder. A cold gust of air rushed down. The temperature dropped instantly. I climbed, flashlight in hand, heart hammering in my chest. The beam of light cut through cobwebs and shadows. The attic was empty. Mostly. In the far corner, something was draped under a large sheet. I approached slowly, flashlight trembling. The dust on the floor had been disturbed, tracks leading directly to it. Not footprints, drag marks, like something had been crawling. I pulled the sheet back. It was a child's rocking horse, ancient, cracked wood, faded paint, and nailed into its side, hundreds of tiny handprints, charred black like ash. Some were no larger than a doll's palm. As I stared, it started rocking, slowly, rhythmically, creaking on its own. Then came the whisper, "Get out." I nearly fell off the ladder, rushing back down. That same night, we found drawings on the walls. Crude, childlike scrawlings in what looked like charcoal. Stick figures, a tall shadow, a family in bed. Fire. We scrubbed them clean. They came back. The next morning, the attic ladder was down again. We both swore we hadn't touched it. Worse, there were bare footprints on the hallway floor, small, child-sized, leading from the attic to the guest bedroom. Jenna broke down. "I dreamed of a girl," she whispered. She was standing at the foot of our bed. Her eyes were missing. I didn't tell her that I'd seen the same thing. That night, we locked the attic, tied the ladder up with rope, taped the ceiling shut. Still, we heard the creaking, the dragging, the child's laughter, and the whisper that now followed us wherever we went. "She sees you now." The guest room was always cold, even on warm summer nights, even when we cranked up the heat. That one room stayed frigid. Jenna started calling it the dead room, half-jokingly. But after what we found in the attic, neither of us were laughing. We hadn't used the guest room in months. It was just a bed, a dresser, and a cracked mirror that had come with the house. The kind of room you closed the door on and ignored, but the door wouldn't stay closed. Every morning for a week straight, we'd wake up to find it wide open. We even started locking it. Deadbolt, latch, chair wedged under the knob. Still open by sunrise. One night, I set up my old baby monitor in there, just to see. Around 2:47 a.m., I was jolted awake by the monitor crackling to life. First came static, then faint breathing, then a soft voice, so fragile and broken it didn't sound human. "Mommy, please don't leave me again." Jenna was already up. She had heard it too, pale as bone, clutching her cross. We crept to the guest room door. This time it was closed. Ice cold to the touch. I turned the knob slowly. The air inside hit me like a wall. Thick, cold, and wrong. The mirror on the far wall was completely fogged over, even though no moisture was in the room. On the bed, the covers were perfectly folded, except for the clear impression of someone lying there, head dented into the pillow. But no one was in the room. Then the closet door creaked open. Inside was nothing but an old child's coat, red, torn, stained. I don't know why, but I reached in to touch it. The second my fingers grazed the fabric, the mirror behind me cleared, and in it I saw a girl. She stood behind me, skin gray, mouth open, eyes black and endless. I turned around. Nothing. The mirror shattered on its own. We called in a priest the next morning. He didn't even finish the walkthrough. He walked into the guest room, stepped back out, and said, "You need someone stronger than me." Jenna started hearing whispers constantly, while cooking, showering, brushing her hair. One night, she told me she heard something say, "He's in your skin now." That same night, I woke up to the smell of burning wood. The hallway was full of smoke, but no fire. We ran to the guest room. On the walls, the child's drawings had returned, now in deep red. Figures burned alive, eyes scratched out, a family trapped. The guest room door slammed shut on its own. We tried to leave the house. We packed bags, booked a hotel, but when we opened the front door, it was just the guest room again. Same cold air, same broken mirror, like the house was folding in on itself. Trapping us inside, Jenna screamed and collapsed. And then I heard it again, the soft whisper, so close I could feel the breath in my ear. "You're part of the house now." She wouldn't respond to me, wouldn't eat, wouldn't even blink unless I touched her. She just sat by the guest room door, cross-clenched in one hand, staring at the wall like she was watching something no one else could see. I begged her to leave with me, to run, but it was like the house already had her. Then the scratching started. It was faint at first, like fingernails dragging along drywall. It moved too, never in the same place, sometimes behind the kitchen cabinets, sometimes right under our bed, but always moving, always close. I tried knocking back once, like an idiot. 3 soft raps on the wall behind our dresser. There were 3 knocks in return, then a 4th, then a 5th, right beside my ear. I ripped the drywall open that night. I was convinced there were animals nesting inside, or pipes shifting, something physical I could understand. But all I found was darkness, a hollow space where insulation should have been, and deep within, a red ribbon, tied to a human tooth. That was the first time I heard her whisper from inside the walls. She knew my name. I started sleeping in the living room with the lights on, door locked, holy water sprinkled across the floors. Jenna still wouldn't move. Sometimes she giggled to herself. Once I caught her drawing the same child's face over and over, hollow eyes, screaming mouth, hair made of fire. One night I found the word "mine" scratched into the living room wall. It wasn't there the night before. I painted over it. The next day it was back. Only now it said, "She's mine too." I called a demonologist. He listened to me for 15 minutes, asked only one question: "Has anyone died in the house?" I told him I didn't know. He said, "Find out, now, before it finishes binding." I dug through town records, newspaper clippings, property files. And then I found it, in an archived article from 1963. A fire had gutted the original house that stood on this land. A mother and her daughter both trapped inside. The mother was found, burnt beyond recognition, but the daughter never recovered. Neighbors at the time swore they heard her screaming for days after the fire, from inside the rubble. No one believed them. I ran home to tell Jenna, but she was gone. Not missing. Gone. Like the house had swallowed her. Her clothes were still in the bedroom, food still on her plate, but no sign of her anywhere. I screamed her name, tore open every wall, every crawl space. Nothing. Then that night, as I sat sobbing by the fireplace, I heard her voice from inside the wall, right next to me, whispering, "I'm so cold, she's in here with me." It was old, original stonework from the 1950s with low ceilings and rusted water pipes that groaned in their sleep. But after Jenna disappeared, I started hearing noises from down there that didn't sound like plumbing or settling wood. It was rhythmic, almost like breathing. One night I followed it. Step by step, flashlight in hand, I descended into the cold belly of the house. The walls seemed to sweat with moisture, though the air was dry. The further I went, the more the temperature dropped, and with every breath, I saw my foggy exhale drift toward the far end of the room. That's when I saw the furnace. It hadn't worked since I bought the place. Old cast iron, bolted shut, probably unused since the 70s. But that night, the door to it was wide open. Inside wasn't ash, it was claw marks, deep gouges in the steel lining like someone had tried to rip their way out from the inside. I backed away, heart pounding. Something moved in the corner of the basement. A shadow twitched. And for just a moment, I swear I saw a small figure hunched in the dark, arms too long, eyes like glass. I turned and ran, but the stairs stretched. Every step I climbed seemed to pull me down further. The shadows chased me. I could feel them just behind me, their breath cold on my neck. When I finally burst into the kitchen, the door slammed shut behind me with a force that shook the walls. And something laughed. Not a loud, evil cackle. No, a soft, breathy giggle. The kind a child makes when hiding behind a curtain, watching you search. Playful. Cruel. That night, I had a dream. I was standing in the basement again. The furnace door swung open. A girl stepped out. Pale skin, burnt patches of hair, eyes black as coal. She reached for me and whispered, "She's inside me now." When I woke up, I found Jenna's drawing again. The same one. Dozens of them, scattered across the living room. But now the screaming girl in the picture was holding a key. And in her other hand, my face. I called the demonologist again. I didn't care if he thought I was crazy. He picked up and said, "She's close. Burn the drawing. Seal the furnace. And whatever you do, don't speak to her if she whispers again." Too late, she was already whispering my name. I woke up to the sound of dripping. Not the usual leaky faucet drip. This was heavier, thicker. A slow, deliberate rhythm. Drip, drip, drip. Following the sound led me to the hallway outside my bedroom, and that's where I saw it. Blood. Thick, dark, congealed blood seeping from the cracks between the plaster. It ran in small rivulets down the wall, staining the off-white paint with long, rusty trails. The smell was suffocating, copper and rot like an old slaughterhouse. I touched it. It was warm. I staggered back, heart thundering, and ran to the kitchen to grab something, anything, to clean it. But when I returned just moments later, the walls were clean, spotless. No blood, no stains, nothing. I stood there, confused, until I turned around and saw the trail. Bloody footprints. Tiny, barefoot imprints, leading from my bedroom all the way down the hall, and stopping just before the basement door. I followed them slowly, dreading what I might find. Every step creaked louder than the last, echoing in the dead silence of the house. When I reached the basement door, it creaked open on its own. I hesitated, then forced myself down, gripping the railing with one hand and a butcher knife with the other. There was no one there, but the furnace door was closed again, this time locked, and written in black ash on the wall above it were 5 words: "She's watching from the walls." That night, the house changed. The electrical systems began to fail. Lights flickered, radios turned on by themselves, always tuned to static. My phone screen kept displaying Jenna's name, even though her contact had been deleted. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of her face in mirrors. But it wasn't her anymore. It was twisted. She had no eyes. Her mouth was sewn shut. Her expression was locked in a scream that never made a sound. And then I started hearing scratching inside the walls. I'd press my ear against them and I could hear whispering. Conversations between multiple voices, like a family having dinner behind the drywall. But none of them were mine. I called the contractor who helped inspect the home when I first bought it. I begged him to return, just to check the walls for mold or rot. He agreed, hesitantly, and arrived the next morning with a crew. They opened up the hallway wall and found bones, child-sized, dozens of them, stacked neatly between the insulation and wood beams, like the house was built around them, like they were supposed to be there. The crew fled. I haven't seen them since, and now every night the walls bleed again. But now, only in the places I touch. After the bones, nothing was the same. I stayed awake nearly every night, watching the house twist around me like a waking nightmare. Every shadow held a secret. Every sound was a threat. But the worst came one evening when I turned on the living room TV. Static. The usual white noise filled the screen, but then it shifted. Shapes emerged. Dark, distorted figures moving just beneath the surface. I rubbed my eyes, but the image sharpened. A face appeared. Not on the screen, in the screen. Pale skin, sunken eyes, mouth sewn shut with thick black thread. Her hair was a matted, tangled mess. She stared directly at me, and then she smiled. A slow, cruel smile that cracked her stitched lips wide open. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then the screen flickered. The lights in the room dimmed. From the corner of my eye, I saw her again, standing behind the couch, silent, watching, waiting. I grabbed the remote, smashed the TV off. The room went black. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "You can't turn away." I screamed into the empty house, but the voice answered back, a whisper, close, right behind my ear. "I'm here, always." The basement door became my obsession. No matter how many times I locked it, I was the only prisoner. Jenna was gone, not missing, not hiding, gone. She had been taken, claimed by the dark entity that had lurked here for decades, feeding on the pain and fear of those unfortunate enough to cross its threshold. I could feel her presence everywhere. Or was it the girl from the mirror? The one with no eyes, lips sewn shut, and a smile that never reached her hollow gaze? She had become a permanent stain on this house, and now she wanted me. The walls whispered my name, low, sultry, almost loving. But underneath it, a menace that chilled my very soul. The floorboards groaned beneath my feet, shifting and flexing as though alive. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. Every shadow stretched and writhed, mocking me with glimpses of things I wished I had never seen. Faces twisted in silent screams, clawed hands scraping at the walls, eyes staring from the dark. One night, I sat on the cold kitchen floor, clutching the last pieces of proof. Jenna's frantic drawings, the audio recordings of whispers and knocks, photographs from the hidden cameras, all evidence of a horror no one else would believe. The house seemed to sense my despair. It responded with a deep, guttural laughter that resonated in my bones, mocking, hollow, and endless. I screamed into the empty silence, begging for release, for mercy. And from the depths of the basement, from the ancient furnace that had been silent for years, came a whisper. So close, so cold, it was like ice sliding down my spine. "You belong to me now." The furnace door creaked open slowly. The heat was sudden and unbearable. A furnace roaring back to life, flames licking the edges of the metal door. I had no choice. With trembling hands, I stepped inside. The walls of the furnace felt alive, pulsating, breathing, closing in. The screams of the girl echoed in my ears, a chorus of pain and rage. I was swallowed whole by the darkness. The story ends, leaving the audience with a lingering sense of dread. The protagonist trapped forever. The house a timeless prison of souls. If you want to watch more horror movies like this, please like and comment on the video. You must subscribe to our channel and keep the bell icon all press. Thank you.